Now then, guys, welcome back to the Cycle Sunday podcast. Now, I am here in a very wet and horrible Chichester. What's the weather like in Edinburgh, Paul?
Hasn't rained for weeks.
Oh, get out of it. I bet it has.
No, it hasn't. It's been amazing.
Tell you what, we had yesterday, I went out on the gravel bike with Dan and we got about 3 or 4 miles in and it absolutely honked it down. It was biblical. I mean, I was absolutely soaking wet.
Yeah. What? Hold the bus.
Yeah.
You mean the architect's got wet?
And muddy.
Is it clean
Very,
now?
very muddy. Yeah, I cleaned it.
Oh,
I've
well
cleaned
done.
it every time I've used it.
Okay.
It got dust on it the first time I used it and I cleaned it.
Very proud.
So, yeah, it was, you know, when you're literally soaking wet.
Yeah.
And then just to top it off, I came down this hill and at the bottom there's 2 tractor tracks full of water and one central bit in the middle that you can go across. And I messed up and skipped into the 2 tractor tracks and it went really deep and I stopped and I had to unclip and both feet went pretty much halfway up my shin. So I got wet feet as well. So yeah, I didn't get it on video though. So.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, do you know, you just reminded me when Rosie and I were very new.
When you were still dating?
No. It's post-date.
Oh, right. Post-first date, but
still very new.
Yes.
We went to Wales for a week's mountain biking.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. We got this combination of amazing trails, but also this absolutely glorious B&B that we stayed in, which was the glamping version of B&Bs. It was absolutely stunning. It was like your house, but you can kind of just stay there for a couple of nights. Absolutely stunning. And
that posh.
That posh. It was totes posh. But I remember Rosie and I went out for a ride and she went through what she thought was a puddle and her entire drivetrain went underwater. And you could see her starting to submerge. And I just went, just keep pedaling, Rosie. Just keep pedaling. And up she went out the other side as well. It was hilarious. It was great.
Let's face it, with Rosie, the puddle wouldn't have to be very deep to do that, would it?
No, it wouldn't have to be very deep, no. I can actually just feel her. She's just over to the right,
she's
and
just
I
off
could,
camera.
Yeah, I could see her eyes sort of burying into the side of my temples.
Mate, I can kind of top that, and this is a girl I was seeing before I met Tracy, and we were out mountain biking with a mate of mine, Darren.
Right,
and Darren and I come down this descent, and I won't say her name, but she was coming down on the mountain bike, and we're like, "Go on, just give it some. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Just let the brakes off." And anyway, she comes flying down this descent, and at the bottom there's quite a big puddle.
Right.
And she came flying into this puddle, and the front wheel went into the water and literally stopped dead. And she did a Wile E. Coyote over the handlebars. The bike then catapulted over her and landed on her back in this puddle. And it was hysterically funny, but not because you couldn't laugh at the time. But
no.
But yeah,
it
was quite funny.
And hence you're now with Tracy. And I've been for many years.
Shortly after I got dumped.
Yeah.
So talking about Rosie,
yes.
I believe, because again, viewers, we have a script to follow today.
We do. So it's clearly going to go wrong again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I believe that Rosie's got a new bike, or
yes, she has, and she's really excited. In fact, actually, probably more excited than she's been over quite a lot of her other even nicer bikes. So just to paint some. Oh, by the way, good evening, everybody. We never.
Yeah, you haven't done that.
No, we never say that often enough, do we? Good evening, listeners, and how are you this evening? Let us know in your comments how your day's been. So,
how are you guys?
Yes, it's so immersive, right? So Rosie has had a number of really, really nice bikes. So she is not...
Sorry, just to interrupt, mate. Sorry. If you can hear the dogs going mad in the background, Tracy's just got home from work. And they're like, ear, ear, ear.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
So brilliant. So Rosie's had a number of nice bikes, and she absolutely loves New Bike Day as much as all of us does.
Oh, we do.
Oh, we
love New Bike Day.
We love New Bike Day. However, I don't think it's any news really that Rosie and I have moved from a 2-van family down to a 1-van family. And just a few how long ago must it have been? Yeah, a few weeks ago, I had the van up in Edinburgh and Rosie was down in the country home, as in just our house. And basically, she just literally needed to go to the shops to get a few bits and pieces. And I said to her, okay, that's fine. She said, I'm just going to ride down. I said, you are? She said, I'm just going to ride down. Well, she hasn't got a bike sub $3,000. So I said...
to put outside the shop.
Yeah. So I said, what do you mean you're going to ride down? I said, where are you going? She said, I'm just going to Tesco's. I said, you flipping not. Right. Yeah. Anyway, so Rosie said, well, listen, I am absolutely happy that we've moved from 2 vehicles down to 1 vehicle. Completely happy with that. However, I do need to get about with some form of transportation, not to have to worry about it or have you, Bowker, stressing about it every time I need to go to the shops. I said, that is incredibly fair, right? I said, well, why don't we just get you a new commuter bike? I said, you've never had one. You've only ever had really nice bikes. Why don't we get a bike for you that is just really set up to just go and do that kind of stuff? And she said, oh, that's ace. So we've just literally built for her a Trek FX2, which is Trek's sort of really basic alloy hybrid bike with a really, really entry-level 3x8 drivetrain system on it, disc brakes, but full-length mudguards, pannier rack. She's got some really nice, fully waterproof 2-lay panniers, water bottle cage, and a D-lock. And that is it. I mean, it.
Does it have a wicker basket on the front?
It's not got a wicker basket because she's got fully waterproof pannier bags, so she doesn't need a wicker basket. That's so we just literally finished that bike, and I just took a photo of her in front of the shop tonight with her new commuter bike. And every 5 minutes that she had available today, she went and did a couple of laps of Dobby's car park. She is so excited. Oh. She absolutely loves it. So there we go. You don't have to spend an absolute fortune. A really nice bike is a great bike, but your commuter bike can also be as exciting. There we go.
Yeah. Hey, but that leads us on to an off-agenda item.
Oh, we can't do that.
Oh, we can.
No, we can't.
And that is bike security when you're out on a ride. It's not okay. It's not so bad if you're with a group because if you're out and about, I don't know, maybe one of you stays with the bikes while the other one pops in and uses the facilities or goes into the shop to buy the coffee or whatever it might be. But if you're on your own, I've had a couple of times where I've maybe wanted to stop at a pub to fill up the water bottles or something.
Yeah, sure.
And you leave your bike outside, and it's like,
yeah.
And I know a couple of people that have had bikes nicked, especially abroad.
Yeah.
I think I told you the story. One guy I know rode up the Col de Tourmalet and got to the top, and his wife was meant to be there, and he was dying to go to the loo, and she wasn't around. So he kind of leant the bike up against the wall and dived into the toilet and came out, and his bike wasn't there.
Oh, my goodness.
And when they rang the police, they went, "Oh yeah, it's like the 5th one this week." They had this big lever arch file full of incident reports of people having the bikes nicked.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that when you go out on a ride, you don't. Well, how many of us carry a cycle lock when we go out on a bike?
Rosie and I do. So Abbas does this little lock that's basically like a recoil lock. So, I mean, anybody who walks along with anything more than a pair of scissors. So, if somebody comes along with a pair of sort of 18-inch bolt cutters, they go through it in next to no time. So, it's literally just like a 3 to 4 millimeter diameter wire cable, and it's just on a sprung-loaded recoil. And it goes into this really lightweight, sort of put into your jersey pocket little lock. And it's just a little combination lock, and it's absolutely brilliant. And Rosie and I, we have one of those each. So when we go out riding together with our nice road bikes, we always, if we're stopping at a cafe stop, we always like to stop for somewhere that basically has got, we can see the bikes whilst they're locked up.
Yeah.
But they just stop the opportunist who would just wheel the bike away. I mean, any professional, frankly, would just literally cut the cable and off they'd be with the bikes. But yeah, it's a big problem. It really is a big problem. And of course, if it's not a lock that is approved by your insurance company, you could have the best insurance cover completely, but sometimes if the bike is stolen without an adequate lock to meet the insurance requirements, you could be uninsured as well. It is a big problem.
Yeah. I mean, that actually, so another question then leading on, let's chuck the agenda out the window. But the other one is insurance, because I mean, my bikes at the moment anyway are on my house insurance. And I actually, when I changed our house insurer a few years ago, I kind of shopped around until I found a house insurance company that would insure my bikes away from the house as well as at the house. And I found one, and they're on there, and I'm sure it's probably added quite a bit to the policy. But one of the things I'm kind of now starting to think about, especially with an incoming e-bike and with the Ultra XR4, they're high value bikes, and I'm wondering whether to just get a specific bike policy. And I didn't know what your thoughts were and suggestions.
Well, again, we've got to be really careful because again, just like insurance and finance, we're not able to give specific advice. However, we can talk about experiences. So so currently, Rosie and I have got an insurance policy that's quite interesting because it is a household and buildings contents insurance that's been written for cyclists. Okay,
right.
So it incorporates all the usual boring stuff, which is your buildings and contents insurance for your house. But it also covers a vast quantity of value for the bikes, but it also insures you whilst you're away. It insures you whilst you're on a sportive. It's got public liability insurance, because that's the other thing to bear in mind is it's not just the theft of your bike. You know, when Rosie and I were riding on our lightweight road bikes together, don't forget that, you know, my road bike is 5 figures and Rosie's bike isn't far off that. And all it would take is for one of us to have a bit of a tangle, and we could potentially both come down together and destroy 2 bikes, you know, without anybody else being involved. So it's about being insured for accidental damage. It's about being insured that if you do bring down a load of people at a sportive, you know, do you have a public liability insurance? So it is all these things that you have to think about.
If you hold a placard up in front of the sportive just before the main group come through.
I'm not insured. Don't ride with me. So it's you know, everybody do consider your insurance. You know, are you covered against theft? Are you covered against accidental damage? Because don't forget, if you drop your carbon fibre road bike, that is not a warranty. That is a a fault claim against an insurance company if you're insured, or a total loss if you're not.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of household insurance, I know the policy I've had in the past, we have one, and yes, you could insure a pedal cycle, but it only up to a value of £1,000.
Yes.
And I think that's quite common. So I just think my gut feel says there's a lot of expensive bikes out there that aren't insured.
Yeah,
properly.
I agree.
And we don't. It's not like cars where you have to have a certain level of insurance to go on the road. I mean, I'm a member of British Cycling, and that gives you that membership gives you some cycling cover in terms of insurance liabilities and stuff when you're on the road. And I'd recommend that. It's not very expensive to be a member of British Cycling. But yeah, I just think those two things. I think when we're talking about expensive bikes and so on, is think how gutted you would be if someone walked off with your lovely shiny new road bike or mountain bike or e-bike when you were having a cup of coffee.
Yeah, indeed. I remember the reason why I'm so anal about it is I must have been about 12, 13. And I remember the place. It was at the newsagents at the Cross. And anybody who lives in Leyland will absolutely know where the Cross is in Leyland, in Lancashire. And I was at the sweet shop, age 13, and I literally parked my bike up. I went in for a bag of sweets, and must have had my eyes away from it for a nanosecond, turned round, and it got nicked. And that was when I was 13 years old, and I'm now, that's 30 years ago, right? Yeah. So
no, it's not
good. I still feel, Peter, the feeling in my stomach from when my
I can imagine.
So and the slipper on my backside when I got home.
Yeah, you bike's been nicked.
Indeed. But no,
so there you go. Yeah. So there's an impromptu two subjects that I think that little bike lock, that sounds really cool. I'll check one of those out.
Yeah, they're very good. Yeah.
Because I don't think I mean, obviously, like Rosie's commuter bike, you can, my old bike that I used to ride to the station had a big D-lock on it. But when I was at university, I had a mountain bike. I mean, it was all right, but it was, for me back then, it cost me a lot of money. And it was in the bike store in the halls of residence. And the bike store got broken into. And my bike was D-locked to two other bikes. And they all went, and the D-lock was broken. Someone basically had a flask of liquid nitrogen or some super cool substance. They poured it on the D-lock and then hit it with a hammer and just shattered the D-lock.
Yeah. Well,
I couldn't. But when the policeman said that, I was like, they did what?
Yeah.
People do that, and they were like,
it's real commonplace. But this could be actually quite a good segue into a second point, because we had I think from last week, which is really great, we're having more and more customer questions come in, and it's brilliant. So please keep them coming. It's absolutely fantastic. But one of the questions that came from last week's podcast was a question with regards to wheels. And how much do you spend on wheels, and what do you get, and all of this sort of stuff. And I will never forget a customer of ours, and this is sort of a bit bittersweet. So a customer, the bitter part, customer got broken into, and his bike's got nicked out of his garage. So that's not great. But all the time that I'd been out riding with this guy, I'd been going on about him because the wheels that he'd got were really cheap carbon wheels. I mean, proper cheap Chinese carbon wheels. And I said, seriously, mate, you'd actually be better on a nice quality pair of alloy wheels than these cheap carbon wheels. Oh, no, they're fine. Anyway.
They look good. They
look good. They deepen the carbon, right? And I said, well, seriously, mate, they're not great. Okay, they're going side to side more than they're going round and round. Right? So he said, "Oh no, they're great. They're great." I said, "All right, what?"
All the torsional rigidity of a paper party plate.
And he said, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." And he knew I did, but it was funny. Anyway, so his garage got broken into, and he came in to tell me, he said, "Oh, flipping it." He said, I need a quotation for my bikes that I got from you that have been nicked, and I'm going to place an order for some new ones." So, "Oh, no problem at all." And he said, "Do you want to hear the funny side?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "The wheels that you've been taking the mick out of me for the last couple of years." So, yeah. So they were in a pair of really nice Bontrager wheel bags. I said, "Right." He said, the thieves took the wheels out of the wheel bags, left the wheels, and took the wheel bags. So he said, "You were right all along. Even the thieves didn't want to nick them."
Oh, that is genius.
So anyway, there we go.
So, so let's talk wheels then, because I that was the first upgrade I ever did to a bike. In fact, I've still got the wheels. They're now, God, they must be 13 years old, I suppose now. My Mavic Cosmic Carbonis that are on my Venge. But that was the first. I bought a relatively low end giant alloy frame bike, carbon forks, carbon seat post, and then I put these deep rim wheels on, and it made such a difference to the bike. So there's the question. So what was the question? How much should you spend, and what should you buy? How long's this podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Let me just find the question. Right. Okay. So it is from Keith, and let me just jump into his question. Right. Okay. So he actually said, "Great chat as always, guys." So thank you very much indeed, Keith. Evening, Keith. Yeah, you can come again. Right. He said, "Can I throw this out, please? Up to £1,000 to spend on carbon wheels." Great. It's for disc brake. It's got centre lock hubs. So for anybody who doesn't know what that means, is that a brake disc or brake rotor, depending on which language you speak in, is basically affixed to the wheel hub via two options. Number one could be what we call centre lock, which was originally developed by Shimano and has been taken on by companies like DT Swiss and those sorts of folk. And what we call the classic 6-bolt fixing. So there's basically 6, usually T25, so a Torx 25 fixing that affixes the rotor to the hub face via 6 T25 bolts. Okay, so those are the two fittings that you can get. Now, what's interesting is
every day's a school day.
Now, what's interesting is if you have a center lock hub, you can fit a 6-bolt rotor to a center lock hub using a center lock to 6-bolt adapter, but you cannot go the other way. So you cannot get an adapter to put center lock rotors onto a 6-bolt hub. So there we go. Just a little bit of information. Okay. So he has got.
I love it when you nerd out. You know, I can see all the little cogs whirring inside. Literally. He's like, "Oh, I can geek out here. I'm allowed to geek out." Here we go.
Sorry. So he's also, sorry, Keith. There we go. Disc brake, center lock. He's running a Shimano free hub body. Again, for somebody who doesn't understand what that means, your rear block of gears, or what's known as the cassette, is mounted onto what we call a free hub body, which is the thing that you hear go clicky, clicky, click every time you stop pedaling, and that allows the wheel to freewheel, okay? And your gears not to basically take your legs out. He is...
Quick question.
Yep.
Quick question. Do you want lots of loud clicky click clicks or
Sorry,
quiet
is that a question, or as in what's my preference? Right, I flipping hate loud hubs.
Click 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 click.
Yeah,
I know you do. That's why I asked it.
Flipping mental. Anyway,
because some of them, I'm sure they're designed to be as loud and as
they are,
as possible.
And the thing is that the reason why they go really loud is because the Paul spring, so not PAUL, but PAWL, so the Paul spring, and the Paul basically clicks up onto the ratchet of the free hub, which then gives you drive forward. So when you then freewheel, what you hear is the Pauls clicking between all the ratchet teeth. And the stiffer that spring, the better the engagement, but the louder the hub. Okay? So that's in a nutshell. Right. So he's got a Shimano free hub body because there are currently, if we keep in this dead generic and quite quick and not here all night, really 4 different styles of free hub body. You've got Shimano that runs basically 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 speed, which is also compatible with Shimano which is also compatible with SRAM non-XD cassettes in 12 speed. You then have SRAM XD driver, which is the mountain bike 12-speed rear cassette where there is a 10-tooth smaller sprocket. You then have SRAM XDR, which is the road variant of their 12-speed, where the smaller sprocket is 10-tooth. And then Shimano for their new smallest 10-speed free hub has got their new microspline. So you've got all of these different free hub standards to suit different types of cassettes. So you need to make sure that the wheel that you're looking for has got compatibility for your particular type of cassette. There we go. Seriously, guys, this is... I
thought we were just doing something easy, like wheels.
But it's part of it, right? I mean, it's... Keith's asked, Keith's getting the answer. Yeah. He's looking at 40 to 50 millimeter depth wheels. Nice. Okay. Because forget about how it basically performs. It's how it looks, right? And he's he's also looking to run a tubeless 28 millimeter tire. Okay. And I'm not going to use any names at the moment, but his question is, help required, please, where my money is best spent. Any personal experience is welcome to comment. Thanks in advance. Keith, what a flipping brilliant question. And also, it is. It's absolutely great. And there's also been quite a few comments back to Keith as well from a couple of folk who have all been very good as well. So no, that's a really great question. So
this evening's podcast is going to be 3 hours long while Paul answers the question.
So I'm just going to try and keep it as simple as possible.
First.
So if this was 2 to 3 years ago, £1,000 for carbon wheels, other than absolute garbage, would be virtually impossible. But we're here, and we're here today.
Which, when you think 500 quid a wheel, that's like,
yeah.
Really?
So a good few years ago, a good quality set of carbon wheels would be around £2,000. A cheap set of carbon wheels would be about 1,300 quid. And then you'll have, a whole ratio in between that 1,300 quid and £2,000. somewhere in the middle, dependent on the manufacturer. However, now, because technology is a good number of years old, like with carbon fiber bikes, for example, we now have trickle-down technology. So, for example, and there'll be a couple of guys from who've replied to Keith who will go, "Here we go. I knew I was going to say this," but I'm only using this as an example, guys. Bontrager, which is Trek's parts accessory and clothing wing, who also now has Bontrager Wheelworks, does 3 levels of carbon wheel. They do an elite range, which is around £800. They do a pro range, a pair. Yeah,
pair?
Great question.
Is that £800
Great question.
a pair?
And that is for a pair. They do a
Yeah. Do you? So just on the quick one, do you typically buy them in pairs? I mean, that's a stupid question, maybe, because you wouldn't put a different wheel on the front and the back. But when you're quoting, when you see wheels quoted online, would that normally be a pair?
No, let's not have that as an assumption. So the first question was a really correct assumption. Would we, as Criterium Cycles, usually quote a pair? Absolutely, we would much prefer to do a balanced pair. However, sometimes online they do quote each, so just be careful when looking at comparisons and what have you. So no, that's not a daft question at all. And there are some people and there's some companies who do different depths of wheels for front to rear. So there are some companies, Envy, for example, they're quite famous for doing like a 30 millish on the front and a 50 mil on the back. Personally, it really plays havoc with my OCD, but Envy, flipping phenomenal wheel manufacturer or phenomenal carbon manufacturer in general. So these guys, they know what they're doing, so they will be able to have some form of evidence and proof to say that under certain circumstances, having different rim depths front to rear is a benefit. But seriously, I always have the same depth front to rear personally. So around 800 quid would be a starting price for a pair of Bontrager carbon wheels, moving up to about 1,200 quid for a lovely mid-level, and then up to around £2,000 for what we would call a factory pair of wheels. So the sorts of wheels that you see riding in the current Tour de France would be between £2,000 and £2,500 for a pair of wheels. And this is the thing that we absolutely love about bikes, is that you can genuinely build what the guys are riding in the Tour. They're not riding anything more special than what you can buy out of the shop if you've got the money to buy it. So you can genuinely get pro kit.
Yeah, it's cool.
But for about 800 quid, I honestly couldn't see past, personally, the Bontrager Elite carbon wheel set. And the reason being is, for no other reason than this, is that they are equally as good as any other manufacturer of wheel at that sort of price point. That's number one. But number two, every single Bontrager wheel now, if it's carbon fiber, so Bontrager carbon fiber wheel comes with a 2-year unconditional guarantee that if you break a wheel through just you riding the bike, Bontrager will repair or replace free of charge within the first 2 years. And I don't think there is another wheel supplier at that sort of price point that will do that. Then after the 2 years, it then comes with what we call the lifetime carbon care, which their crash replacement is then 50% of the original purchase price. They will do as a discount on new pair. Yeah. So from a backup, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely fantastic. And so from a build quality point of view, value for money point of view, but as an aftercare package, I think that is pretty unbeatable, personally. By all means, compare and contrast, but it is pretty unbeatable. And then in addition to that, the Bontrager wheels have got some of the best compatibility availability. So the availability of things like different standards of free hub bodies, irrespective of what driver standard and transmission standard you've got, there's pretty much free hub bodies available for it. Spare parts, so spare bearings, spare pulls, springs, spokes, all of those things are then available from the entire Trek dealer network. So ultimately, that would be my shout at that price point.
Wow. And that, so two questions then. Firstly, are those wheels tubeless capable? Or
well done.
Ready?
Yes, they are. So again, in the box,
excellent,
you get tubeless rim strips, valve cores, all ready to go tubeless. And they are 21 millimeter internal width, which will then work beautifully with a 28 millimeter tire. The profile, the shoulder profile, will be really, really nice on that wheel. And the Aero Profile of that particular wheel is the same Aero Profile as the Aeolus wheels that were the $2,000 wheels from around 6 or 7 years ago. So you're getting wonderful trickle-down technology from what was a phenomenal wheel.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. There was also another part of the reply in the comment in terms of looking at depths. And so many people have got this misconception that a really deep wheel, and when I'm talking really deep, I'm talking sort of 40, 50 millimeters, are like sails in a crosswind. Not the case. If you have got, Rosie, again, we talk about my wife. I mean, you've met Rosie. She's 60 and a very bit kilos wet through. Yeah.
Be careful.
No, but
be really careful.
No, but the top and bottom of it is she's flipping light. And on her previous Trek de Marne, she rode a pair of Bontrager Aeolus 5, full carbon wheels, 50mm depth. Absolutely not a problem at all. And that was including on the Yorkshire Struggle from a number of years ago where it was blowing a hoolie. We had a lot to moan about that day, but being blown around wasn't one. So again, the quality of the Aero Profile, so how a wheel works in what we call a yawing, so as the wind is not coming straight towards you, but it's actually yawing round the side of the bike, how a wheel responds to a crosswind, a tailwind and a headwind is also testament to how good Aero Profile it originally was. And as I say, the Bontrager wheel sets are absolutely fantastic at that.
Yeah, that's really good.
There we go.
Oh, it's not like you're riding a disc wheel or anything, right?
Oh, flip! No. And that's that. No.
And they look cool.
And they look cool, yeah. But no, on a pure practical perspective, that would be at that price point, which is, it's a lot of money to spend. At that price point, that for me would be my shout.
But the difference that will make to a bike,
phenomenal,
is huge.
Yeah, massive. Yeah. Really, really good.
Huge.
Really good.
Yeah, what a really interesting question.
Oh no, it was
more
great.
Questions like that.
Yeah, and I hope that answer. And again, just please feel free if that's Keith, if that's totally answered your question, rock and roll. If it's if it's caused you to ask more questions from it, just give me a shout and we'll be happy to revisit it. And if anybody else from there is wanting to ask more questions, please do. So hopefully I didn't get too nerdy and as succinct as I could do.
Not at all, because I honestly think, and you know, if you bought a bike and you want to make that bike a little bit better, a decent set of wheels is like, first place to go, right?
Yeah, completely. But also make sure that you you put a good pair of tires on it as well.
Yeah.
So just make sure you get a really nice set of excuse me, a great pair of tyres to go on that. And there's a
Yeah.
combination between good frame, good bike, good wheels, good tyres. You're on a winning formula.
Very good.
So well done. Thank you, Keith.
That's question number 2 done.
It is.
Awesome.
It's question number 2 done.
Hey, now, very quickly, question number 3, because I've got your list as well, because you WhatsApped it to me.
Yeah.
Tour de France.
Yes.
Now, 2 things I want to talk about on Tour de France.
Yep.
One I mentioned actually on last week's podcast, I think, was the absolute numpty that brought the peloton down by holding a sign up to try and get on the telly.
Flipping.
Who's now being, I believe, the organisers of the tour are going after them legally. I think
brilliant.
They're trying to prosecute them, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's just one of the reason I mentioned it is if you've ever been to see a top flight race, be it the Tour de France or I saw the women's tour a few years ago.
Wow.
The one thing to say is, and I've seen the Paris-Roubaix. Paris-Roubaix is amazing because we were on a section of Pavé and the peloton went past like so fast. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it's just the reason I thought it was mentioning is I'm not by any means making excuses for the idiot that held out that piece of cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've never been before, they come past so quickly and are on you so quickly.
Yeah.
You just have to be really, really, unless you're on a climb, obviously, and mountain stage is a bit different.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've just never. I don't know whether I would. I'd go and see a mountain stage. I think where the peloton's strung out quite a bit, and then you get everything coming through. But just to see a flat stage and the whole peloton's gone past in about 15 seconds does nothing for me, I'm afraid.
Sure. Yeah. And I think this was where the questions came from because obviously Tour de France is coming. And do you know what? Let's have a bit of controversy. I'd absolutely love to hear people's comments on this because I sent, as Pete's already said, I sent a WhatsApp to Pete earlier on with a kind of agenda for the evening and for this podcast. And I actually put here, question number 3, Tour de France. Are you watching it? Number 2, the second part of that, are you interested? Right? And then thirdly, is road cycling a good generic spectator sport for non-cycling geeks? And I thought that would be a really good controversial topic to bring up because I think I've said on previous podcasts, I absolutely love watching the UCI cross-country and downhill mountain biking. I love personally riding road bikes and any bike, frankly. But I've got absolutely no interest. And I will do when they get into the mountain stages. And I always like to watch the mountain stages come alive. Yeah. But I've got no interest, particularly in usually the first week where it tends to be a bit sort of flatter. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were.
I mean, I haven't watched it for the last couple of years. I went through a phase of from probably about 2009 through to about 2015 where mainly the Tour de France, not so much the Giro d'Italia or the Vuelta, where I'd watch the ITV highlights program, the 1 hour, chopped up one, because to watch it live during the day, I mean, the stages are like 4 hours long. Yes. So to watch the highlights is good. And at that time, that was the time when Bradley Wiggins was racing, and there was, I think we've talked about this before on a podcast, where there was lots of rivalries going on. Yeah. One thing I do want to say, because I don't know if you've seen the results from today's stage. So we're recording this on Tuesday, which is very unusual. We are well in advance. But today, Mark Cavendish won his first stage in like forever.
Well, that is brilliant.
And I honestly, because I used to love watching it when Cav was at his peak. Yeah. Bear in mind, I bought my Venge because that was the bike Mark Cavendish rode. Right. And I'm a massive Mark Cavendish fan. And he was just, I think at the time, and we're probably talking kind of 2010, 11, 12, because then he went to Sky, which I always thought was a bit of a bad move because he was, when they did the tour in 2012 with Wiggins as the kind of the lead rider and Cav, you think you can't have a team support a sprinter and a GC rider. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But he was amazing, and to watch Cav bring out the train at the end and with Bradley Wiggins on him was one of the best things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I used to love that, and I love watching the sprint and the jostling and the tactics and the game of chess that takes place on a sprint day. And then to watch them and watch the guy sat at the back and you see the team members bury themselves and slowly one by one drop off until there's only like one or two left. And I love watching that. And like you, I love it when it goes into the mountains and it's that cat and mouse. You know, when are they going to break? You know, do they break too early? Are they going to get caught? I love all of that. So I do love watching it on the TV. But there has to be a personality or a story or something going on. You know, be it G. Thomas winning or you know, it's normally when there's a home nation rider involved. But I haven't watched it this year yet. And the big challenge at the moment is Wimbledon started this week. Right. So the highlights program clashes with the Wimbledon coverage. So it's a case of choosing between the two.
Yeah. So So is that the point then? So for those people who I think Formula One for a while got a little bit sort of staid and stale. And now you've got Verstappen and Leclerc and Hamilton sort of in the, is it fair to say, the sort of waning years, or maybe the peak and over the top, and you've got these youngsters.
I think he's just got someone with a car that's better than his for the first time since 2012.
Indeed, but you've still got this Leclerc and, you know, Verstappen and Hamilton, so that the personalities are now just starting to come together. So I think, and you had exactly what you just said there with the sort of Cavendish years, the Wiggins years. You know, dare I say it? You know, let's be really controversial. The Lance Armstrong years, the Le Monde years, the Pantani years. You've got all of these periods in history where almost it's about the personality.
Yeah, it's the same. Look at the tennis. You know, we were talking last night because obviously Andy Murray was playing last night, and you know we're coming to the end of the Federer, Nadal, Djokovic years, and someone else will take their place. So I think there is a big element for that. Your question about the spectator sport thing, for me, road cycling never made sense until I started cycling, and then I really got into the kind of the history and the sport of especially tour riding. And how the teams work and the different roles within the team and the tactics and all that. And I just find it fascinating. And then when you go and do, I've done a few stages. I think I've mentioned a number of times. I did 5 stages of the Tour de France on a charity ride that basically maps the precise schedule of the tour. So it rides exactly the same stages on the same schedule. And you can enter 1 stage, 2. You could do the whole thing if you wanted to. And I did the last 5. And for me, that just gave me a love of the Tour de France because it made me realise how bloody difficult it is.
Yes.
And those guys, they are unbelievable athletes.
Incredible.
We won't get too controversial in terms of drugs and all that kind of stuff, but I find it sad that always gets in the way. But they are just phenomenal athletes, and every now and again you'll see something really, really special. So I hope to see a bit more of the tour. I think it's a shame that the crash kind of took a few of the kind of main contenders out, which is always sad when that happens up front. But I love watching the one. I just love watching the Red Bull Rampage. Those guys that drop off the mountains in Nevada and stuff. Those guys, they are unbelievable.
They're unhinged.
And I'm lucky. I think we talked about this when we had Joe Achilles on the podcast. You know, his best buddy is one of those guys. I think they're amazing. And then the other thing, I love watching Danny McCaskill videos because how he does that stuff. And who was the other guy who did the road bike stuff? Who ended up being paralyzed?
I can't honestly can't remember his name, but
you know who I mean. Help us out, listeners. Put it in the comments. But you watch those, and again, it's just the skill levels. I mean, my skill levels. I remember when I did the tour, one of the guys I rode the tour with, who I don't know whether you listen to this guy called John Twitchin, and he's a big BMX rider. And when we did the tour, the one skill he had, and I bet you can do this, he could do a track stand.
Right.
So when we got to like a red light on the road, everyone unclips, and he'd just stand there and just perfectly balance on the bike, still clipped in, as if the bike was super glued to the road, and it'd be like, how are you doing that? And I've tried so many times to do a track stand, and I just end up falling off and hurting myself.
No, the best track stander I know is Natalie. And Natalie, now Stewart, was Natalie Milne, who rode for Scotland in Commonwealth Games in triathlon. And she is married to my sort of right-hand man in the store, Keith. And she's absolutely lovely. But my goodness, she is a weapon on a bike and in a pair of running shoes. Oh, flipping it, Peter. She wants...
Is that why you bought an e-bike, so you can keep up with it?
We went for a ride, and we went and did effectively a duathlon. She helped me with duathlon training, and we went for this ride. And I thought, I'm all right. We're about sort of level pegging here. And then immediately afterwards, put the pair of running shoes on and went off into the Pentlands on a trail run. And the speed, she just destroyed me. And it was embarrassing, but she's amazing. And whenever you get to a junction, she's just there, just absolutely perfectly holds the bike, absolutely upright, and she's just great, absolutely great. We'll have to get her on the podcast.
Yeah, there's two things. I'd love to do a track stand, and I'd love to be able to do a really good wheelie. John Twitching can wheelie forever. It's just So
you're too old for both.
So there we go. So so we're coming to the end of the time, but I know you wanted to talk about one more thing about your nationwide delivery service and just generally people ordering bikes and stuff.
Yeah, it was again. It's been a little bit bittersweet, really. This week, every single week you say how is it in the bike shop, and every week we say it's absolutely phenomenal, it's absolutely brilliant, and it still is. It's absolutely great, but the thing that we are finding at this moment is a real balance between saying to people who are interested in bikes, we genuinely have one left and they are going really quickly. So not wanting to put people under any pressure to purchase, right? Because that's not us. It's not our style. A decision has to be made organically, and it also has to be made in your time. You are the customer, and you should never be put under pressure. And balancing that with the sheer disappointment when we do point out gently, look, you cannot reserve, we can't hold these bikes unless you are wanting to buy it. You can't just hold it for 24 hours because, we've got a business to run as well. Otherwise, we'd just be holding bikes for everybody and nothing then gets sold. So you can't hold a bike. But then we've had, not many times, we've had a couple of times now where there's just been one bike that's left in stock, and it's a rare thing. And, because we're online now and we're delivering nationwide, that you have sometimes when customers phone back and say, yeah, I'd like to go for that bike now, please. You go, I'm really sorry, it's been sold. It was taken over the weekend. We did try to say on Friday when you phoned that there's literally one left, and unfortunately somebody ordered it online on Saturday. It's gone. And, it pulls at our heartstrings.
I know I wouldn't feel too bad about it though, mate, because I think that's just generally the case now. There's such short supply in all kinds of fields. The car industry is the same. I was talking to, obviously, I'm a Hendy brand ambassador, and we're just trying to sort out my next brand car, and we've really struggled just getting hold of anything because there's just no stock out there. And it's just byproduct of the current situation. I think.
Indeed. But just
so what you're basically saying is, if you want a bike, just put the deposit down and have it.
If you know it is the right thing for you, it's affordable. You get a really good vibe from from any dealer, from us preferably, but from any dealer that you're dealing with. Just if a dealer turns around to you and says, "Listen, it is the last one that we've got," genuinely, it probably is. It's not a sales tactic. Genuinely, it probably is the last one that they've got, and potentially the last one they're going to get for a while. So just don't think it's a sales tactic. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I reckon that's a pretty good way to finish, actually.
Yeah. No, it's good.
What a good chat.
It was very good.
And it's early. So one of the things, listeners, that you don't necessarily see, because why would you, is that obviously we have to record these on a weekly basis, and normally we're not particularly well organised. And I'm all over the country filming, and Paul's flat out in the shop. And I'll normally send him a WhatsApp on Thursday going, when can we do the podcast? But today, for the rest of the week, I'm literally away all week doing stuff, and then at the weekend, I'm actually on our. So by the time you're listening to this, I'm in the Cotswolds with my mate Dino, and we've got a nice few days of gravel biking in the Cotswolds.
Amazing.
Filming for season 2 of Cycle Sunday.
Yes.
So normally we're not this well organised, but impressed. Very impressed.
Yeah.
And actually, you'll also be very impressed, because what you won't realise is we've recorded this while England are playing Germany at football. Because neither of us are that bothered about the football.
Is there a football match going on?
More hate than anything. Apparently, it comes that time at the end of this podcast.
Indeed.
Make sure, please. I've had a few people reach out and say we've been onto Apple and we've given you a 5-star review, which is amazing.
Thank you.
So if you can make sure you subscribe.
Yeah.
Hey, I got my tweet retweeted by Bianchi UK this week.
Really?
Which was very cool. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's give him a shout out then. That will be thanks to Mr. Andrew Griffin from Bianchi UK, who's the country manager for Bianchi UK. And can I also say what a fabulous guy he is, and his wonderful team that he's got working with him. Well done to all of you at Bianchi.
And I love the
UK.
Architects.
And you love the Architects, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, we're trying desperately to build up numbers. It's very slow and painful.
Yes.
But hopefully you enjoyed that one. But at this time, I shall say, I've been Pete Greaves.
And I've been Paul Bowker.
Ride safe, guys.
Ride safe, everybody.